Good afternoon. This is your Pan-African show called Afreeqa with your host Sa-Roc. Today, actually this weekend marks the last week or the last days of Black History Month. And I was blessed, and our country was also blessed to have two great African Americans that actually are in town. And we are going to be talking to them. I would like to say welcome to Ethiopia.
Thank you so much. Or should I say, I'm Segnalo?
That's even better. That's even better. Thank you.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you too. If you could please tell us a little bit about you, your name, who you are, and also our other guest.
My name is SaRoc. I am a hip-hop artist, born in Washington, D.C., but I started my rap career in Atlanta, Georgia with this gentleman here, Sol Messiah. And what we do, we like to call it God hop, in that the type of music that we create is atypical to what you would find on the radio that would be classified as rap, where there's themes of just commercialism and in some ways like negative kind of emphasis on, you know, violence or drugs or, you know, any of that. We make music that hopefully inspires people to be empowered, to seek more, to, you know, dig deeper into knowledge and other ways to elevate themselves in their mind. So that's what we're here to do. And we feel honored to be here celebrating Adwa because we're all about liberation and fighting for freedom, especially through the music.
You know, one thing I have to say over here is I also do events, and I always wanted to bring somebody on Adwa because we've always said Adwa is an African victory, but we've never really had other non-Ethiopians actually participate in that amazing celebration. So it's really an honor to have you. It really is.
Thank you for having us.
And you, sir, if you could tell us a little about yourself.
My name is Sol Messiah. I am a music producer, musician from America, and I do all the music for SaRoc, all of the production, and I'm her DJ. And I see myself as a freedom fighter through music. I love all our African cultures throughout the diaspora, and it's an honor to finally be able to make it to Ethiopia. You know, I always wanted to come since I was young. I got to go to other places, but I'm so happy to be here. But my thing is taking music, using it in a positive manner, and being able to spread the word of hip hop, which is elevation. Like she said, we do God hop, which is hip hop elevated. No misogyny, no drug dealing, none of that. Only positivity and upliftment, focusing on Africans in the diaspora.
Your journey in finding your voice, both literally and creatively, is quite remarkable. How did overcoming challenges such as being born premature and not speaking for the first 14 months of your life impact your approach to music and storytelling?
I think, first of all, it fostered a connection. I feel like a deeper emotional connection to music. And having that beginning where I wasn't able to speak, I think that in some ways I was afraid of my voice, and I was responsible for silencing or muting my own voice. I found that, you know, in retrospect, I would shrink a lot, you know, not want to be seen, not want to be like too visible. And music has always been my lifeline, and that was a direct result of my upbringing. Like, my parents have always told us, or told me, when they recount like the story of my birth, that these certain artists, these certain songs were what got them through. They helped them to like survive, you know, through dealing with like one of the worst experiences of their life, the hardest experience of their life. So that kind of fostered my own connection to music in that way, using music as a tool to be able to speak the things that I didn't feel comfortable speaking, or I just didn't know how to articulate. So it wouldn't be until years later when I discovered that that's what I wanted to do, that I was adamant about using music as not only a healing modality, but also in the same way that I was able to use it as a form of speaking truth to power and telling stories and that are often unheard, you know, that some people might shy away from or think that too private or whatever. For me, it was important for me to share things that I hadn't heard before, that I needed desperately to be able to connect to. And then when I did that, that's when I noticed like all different people from all different walks of life, from all different countries were like, oh my God, I've never heard anybody talk about this before. Thank you for sharing this. And I realized I was carrying on the tradition of all of those people who influenced me in that way, from the Billie Holidays to the Gil Scott-Herons to the Earth, Wind & Fires and Stevie Wonders. So I'm just trying to honor those who set the example for me.
Your journey in hip-hop culture started with breakdancing, as I read. After breakdancing, you progressed to DJing and producing. How did each of these experiences shape your understanding of hip-hop and your approach to music production?
So hip-hop, in its purest essence, is 4 elements. And those 4 elements are DJing, breakdancing, which is b-boying, MCing, which is the rapper, like what she does, and graffiti, which is art. And those 4 facets are basically what shaped me and everything that I do now in the culture. And I always like to use the culture and major pieces of the culture in Africa to relate to them. So I talk about the DJ is the African drum, it's the rhythm. I talk about the MC is the griot, storyteller in on the continent. I talk about the graffiti and the art, it's like the African art, sculptors, hieroglyphs, it's all together. It's like we brought it from Africa and took it throughout the diaspora. So that's what raised me. It kept me out of the streets. It kept me off of drugs. It kept me from alcohol. And I remember my mom would tell me, they would say, well, I want some turntables, Mom, so I could DJ. And they'd be like, if you get good grades in school and you do this and you do this, they would reward me. So I had motivation to do what I was supposed to do so that I can get what I wanted. And I can only give that to hip hop. You know what I mean? Because of that, it allowed me to stay focused on a mission. And I use that. And when I do my music or I go into communities, I try to take that to other youth and let them see, you know, it's something else you could do. It's a lot we could do. So many parts and pieces of this culture that we can be involved in, you know? So that's basically, you know, that whole culture, those 4 facets of how I live.
So now that you are here for Adwa, now I'll bring it to Adwa and ask both of you the same question. What does Adwa mean to you?
It means Africa as it should be, untouched, uncolonized, unenslaved, completely free to live and walk and breathe in the tradition and cultures that we have established, that our ancestors have gifted us and we carry on. I think it's an important symbol for all of us on the continent and in the diaspora to celebrate and give honor to those who are willing to go to battle, you know, and fight for the land. You know, I think that we have a lot of examples of that through the Haitian Revolution and, you know, numerous like rebellions in the States. But I think being so early and then, you know, to have the honor of being completely uncolonized is just a beautiful, beautiful example for all of us to, even now, we're having to decolonize our minds from the miseducation that we've learned in schools and, you know, just through society kind of training us to be anything other than what we were born to be, you know, to displace us from our roots. And I think that in celebration of that, you know, it's important to honor that and carry on just the energy of that freedom, you know, be willing to fight for yours.
And I basically end up echoing and also saying that for us, Ethiopia has always been a pillar. Like, you see how they tried, but they failed trying to colonize us here? And that is a wonderful example of what everybody should and ended up doing, you know what I mean? But it's just the freedom from being held down, and it's lovely to be a part of that, you know what I mean? Like I said, I would never thought I would have been able to do this, you know what I mean, and be here. And it's always been that pillar, that perfect. I want to mirror that, you know what I mean? I want all of us to be able to do that, and it's wonderful.
Growing up with parents who exposed you to a very diverse range of Black writers, musicians, and performers must have been incredibly influential. How did these early influences shape your artistic development and the themes you explore in your music? You actually touched a little bit on it in the beginning.
I think it was, I don't know, it had an incredible influence because not through the writers, and also I actually went to a Pan-African school, and so we were exposed to, you know, so many different cultures and the history of our life before enslavement in Africa. Of course, our beautiful history as Black people in America, but also before that, you know, where were we and who were we before that? I got a chance to explore the languages, and just that exposure, it fortified me as a Black woman to see our stories or read our stories being told, you know, outside of, you know, the white lens, you know, from the Zora Neale Hurstons and James Baldwin and Toni Morrison. Like, they inspired me to write from my perspective. And Toni Morrison has always said, in response to white interviewers asking her, why doesn't she expand her, you know, why didn't she expand her subject matter beyond, you know, Black communities? And she was like, why would you ask a white writer that? Why should I have to? You know, I'm a Black woman. I write from the perspective of a Black woman, and I want to tell these stories. And that's the same way that I think that these authors and these musicians have molded me to want to emphatically tell my story from my voice, from my perspective. Because so much of what we do is often there's this attempt to kind of dictate and regulate how we should share. So yeah, it was a huge influence on me, not only through like the arts and the literature, but I was blessed to be able to go to a Pan-African centered school where we learned about the culture, the different myriad of cultures on the continent. We learned about the history, we learned languages. But I think that the artists and writers that they exposed us to, from Langston Hughes to Toni Morrison to James Baldwin, were unapologetically Black voices. And I think that when I started writing, that was always important to me, to have freedom through my storytelling and to speak from my perspective as a Black woman, because so much of our writing, our voices, our bodies are policed by this white gaze that tells us how we should walk through the world and what kinds of stories we should tell, not to be too inflammatory, not to be too truthful, you know what I mean? Yeah, too real, too direct.
Too real.
And for me, having those examples of artists and singers who were just truth-telling were definitely inspirations for me when I started doing music, that I was going to speak with my voice and my voice only, and no one outside of me was going to dictate how I did that.
So coming to Mr. Sol Messiah, how did you get your name, by the way?
When I was when I was a teenager, we it wasn't an official rites of passage, but in the community we had a lot of elder brothers and sisters that were making sure that we were on point. And one of the things that they said is a name is everything. And your name, when you introduce a person to yourself to a person, when you say your name, that's what they see you as, and words are power. So some elders in the community and some other brothers and sisters that I knew said, you know, you need a name of power. So they came up with Sol Messiah, and I helped them come up with that because I was like, I like that. Sol is the son, as we know. It's one, and Messiah is savior or leader. And since I was dealing with culture of hip-hop, they were like, you are tasked with helping save this culture, which is a subculture of African culture and diaspora. So that's how it came.
Before I get into your collaborative work, I would like to know how you guys met, because you were in DC and then you moved to Atlanta. You live in Atlanta now.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I live in Atlanta now. My sister actually was the one who introduced me to him. They were all friends, and, you know, just at a dinner we met and we became friends as well. And at the time he was working with some really dope, like, Atlanta artists, hip hop artists. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I came to Atlanta after leaving college with no direction, just like, I have this job, you know, we'll see what happens. I was traveling. And I was listening to his music all the time. Like I was listening to his beat. He would make these beat CDs, and I was listening to his music, and I was listening to the music he did with these artists. And I was like, I write poetry. So I had a background in poetry, but not in hip hop or rapping. But I was so like inspired by the artists he was working with. One day we were in the studio and he was just playing music, and I was just like, let me see if I can get in the studio and like see what I would sound like. Can I record one of my, you know, my poems to your work? And I did. And I was embarrassed, you know, I'm thinking that I wasn't good. And he was like, that's actually not bad. Do another one, you know? Because he has always loved working with, you know, female rappers, which was rare at that time. A lot of producers weren't, you know, investing time or energy into women rappers because it's kind of imbalanced, hip hop in terms of, you know, who gets the platform and is allowed to get visibility. So anyway, so he had me record a couple more, and we ended up creating my first work. Like it was like a 5 or 6 song EP called Astral Chronicles. But that's how we came to be. I had no idea I wanted to do this. I think it was just calling me, and he helped to kind of usher that call, realize that call. So.
Yeah. But she, like you said, I was surprised. She said she wanted to try to do music, and she did. And when I heard it, I was like, this is actually good. She was like, no, it's not. I'm like, no, it actually is really good. So we did another one and another one and another one. And to her surprise, I said, so that's your first album? She's like, no. We put it out. Then we did it again and again and again and again. And now she's 13 albums in and traveling the world doing it.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
And one thing I do know about her, learned that I don't, because a lot of people say, I know you help her and you do. I don't say or do anything with her rhymes. Her creativity, I think, is channeled. I don't know where it comes from. I mean, it comes from her, but I'm saying it's truly ancestors coming through, because her effect on people is not to be played with. I see how people are affected by her words and her voice and her presence. So I love the way she just develops and does her thing.
Now they remind me what my lows look like. I know those guys are living.
So I just want to be there to aid. I make the soundscape, the music around what she does. And so it's beautiful.
Beautiful. Can you talk about the creative dynamic between you two and how it has evolved over time?
I'm a music producer. So basically, I make music. So if you think of just instrumental music that you might love, you hear Stevie Wonder, he just make a song, he won't sing on it or nothing. I do that. I make the music. See, I just compare myself to Stevie Wonder. I'm not like Stevie Wonder, but I love Stevie Wonder. But I make the music for that. So how it works is I'll come up with an idea of a song. I'll give her the music, and I say, tell me what you come up with. And she always comes up with something that's dope. And she'll add to it, and then I'll come back and I'll add something to it. And then by the end of the song, it's a full circle. It's an idea. You know what I mean? And it just depends on the vibe. Some days you might be feeling rough, so the music comes out rough, and then she'll write it like that. But sometimes I'll write something in my mind, I hear one thing, and she'll add something else, and it blossoms something else. It'll birth a new idea.
And like when we first started, I literally was learning how to rap, and he was teaching me like, this is 16 bars, which is the structure for one verse in a rap song. And you know, at first I was just kind of just rapping, and I didn't know how to write a hook or anything like that. So I was learning how to do it as I was writing albums. So what he would do is punctuate a lot of the things. So like he knew exactly like what like tempo or like what we call BPM, beats per minute, like that I thrived on. So he would create beats at that certain like tempo. And then like if I had a certain cadence when I rapped, he would like emphasize the music at that point to kind of accentuate like my voice and stuff like that. And he still does. But I think that early on when I was still growing as an artist, that helped. Like it was a perfect synergy between like my voice and his music as I was growing as an artist. And like now, usually, like he said, he'll give me the beat and I'll add to it. But sometimes like I'll have an idea in mind as well and be like, I want something, you know, melancholic, or give me something grimy or whatever. And because he knows me, he knows like exactly what I'm asking for because we've worked together for so long.
A producer to me should be a good tailor. like a person who makes clothing. So I can't give her a size 38 pants if she wears a 30. You know what I mean? So I make sure that the music fits what she does, so that when she puts it on and she steps out into the world, you look great, meaning you sound great. So that's how I look at it. It has to fit. You know, it can't just be pieced together.
So you've opened for influential artists like The Roots, and you've shared the stage with legends such as Rakim. It must have been a surreal experience.
Yeah.
How have these opportunities influenced your approach to live performances and your interactions with other artists in the industry?
I think in connecting with the crowd, because with those performances, they were like big festival performances, which are very different than performing in an intimate environment like a club. So seeing how like the expression has to be bigger versus where in a smaller club, you can like make eye-to-eye contact, you can talk to certain people, and it's just easier to connect in that way. But seeing particularly like Black Thought from The Roots in the way that he's able to just kind of vibe out with his band, and then, you know, his just his whole stature, his body placement is just larger than life, and having to like just seeing them work the entire stage and like making sure they're getting maybe not individual people, but getting the full span of the audience. Like real technical stuff like that in a sense you might not know, like your performance does have to change a bit, like your set does have to change a bit in terms of what songs you can do, maybe more call and response kind of thing, like engagement with the crowd. Really, it's just, the main thing is just seeing the masters at work. You know what I mean? And then wanting to, I hate to say this, but yeah, you want to impress like your idols, the people who you look up to. So it makes you work all the more harder to like kind of emulate the ease with which they do this, that they perform. So you get your stuff together real quickly when you're having to open up for people like that or perform alongside people like that. Because there's no space for fear, there's no space for mistakes. Exactly. So I think those are the main ways in which like it really inspires and influences the way that I interact with crowds of that magnitude, you know?
As a producer, what do you prioritize when crafting beats for artists, and how do you ensure your production enhances the overall message and delivery of the lyrics?
For me, music is a feeling. And I make a lot of music, but the ones that stick are the ones that if I play it for you, I'll just play it. I won't say, listen to this and tell me what you think. I'll play music in the middle of a room with people who weren't paying attention. If they turn and the neck starts to do this and the eyes close, that means that the notes are right. They call them blue notes. I think they call them, that's out of around the time of Watts, Stax, and all of the older music. And they would make music that is feeling. The feeling. So that's what I like to do. My music, hip hop, as you know, is very drum heavy, and that's important to me. But I like to make melodic music. So a lot of times you'll hear in her music, she'll sing on a lot of them because they're melodic. But if those notes don't hit, if it doesn't make you feel good, a friend of mine told me the neck don't lie. So if I'm doing this to music, it's genuine. You know what I mean? So it's just about how it feels. And if it feels good and it fits her, then that's how I usually will approach it. You know, what feels good, what sounds good, you know what I mean? Feeling-wise.
In addition to your music career, you're also a health advocate and wellness, particularly within undeserved communities. How do you incorporate your passion for these issues into your music and your work as a public speaker?
One major way is I work hand in hand with an organization called Hip Hop is Green, which is an organization that works with underserved communities, particularly children, to kind of teach them young, educate them about a plant-based diet, and also about sustainability practices within their environment as well. And they pair like hip hop artists who are also plant-based as well to talk to the children and also perform and contribute to their magazine. So I've done all of that. And I think that I do so in subtle ways. I wholeheartedly believe that one's artistry should be an extension of who they are as a person. So I definitely like imbue those things through my lyrics. I talk about, I make references to being vegan, or, I'll talk about like just holistic ways in which that I use to help or like fortify my spiritual wellness, but also my physical wellness as well. So I like subtly just like put little placements in my music. So not to come across like this song is about like health, but like just so people can pick up on these things. And it works in that way. Like people will be like, oh my gosh, you burn sage, or oh my gosh, you drink this kind of tea, just from listening to a song that's not necessarily even about that.
Right.
Because I think that's one of the beautiful things about art, and also teaching through art, is that, you don't have to hammer people over the head, just kind of like drop little messages. Yes, exactly. And it'll connect with those who it's supposed to connect with.
Absolutely. Hip-hop culture has evolved significantly since your early days in Atlanta. How do you see your role as a producer contributing to the preservation and evolution of hip-hop culture?
I'm a purist, meaning a lot of the new music, it's changed, which is cool. I use some of the elements in her music, but I try to keep certain things constant. Number one, that's the drum. My thing that I like to add, though my name is Soul, S-O-L, it's also S-O-U-L, depending on where you're speaking, and that's the soul, which is the music. So I try to keep good soul in Atlanta and throughout the diaspora. Everybody kind of, if one music is popular, they all do it. Everybody's doing this certain type of music. And then I take just elements of it, but I keep that base, keep that core, you know what I mean? And I have been doing this since the late 80s. So I work with a lot of early artists that you see, a lot of the R&B from TLC, to Boyz II Men, to Young Jeezy, I work with a lot of these people and help to cultivate a lot of their careers. So I look at it like I will continue even when, like with working with her, and especially with women, because it's so important, because you don't get a fair shake. I'm a man, but I can admit we messed up a lot because, mindset, culture, thinking that, you know how it goes in society, but that carries over into music. But I feel like I would be able to, by helping women, helping her, and she being able to lead the charge with my music and using what she says and does, it's influenced a lot of people, you know what I mean? And because I stopped doing music for a lot of other people. When I started working with her, I stopped, working with other people because I wanted to concentrate on something I knew would have an impact. And I feel like what we do, which she spoke on, which is God Hop, will spread, you know what I mean? So I just keep that core, keep making sure I support her and just women in general in what we do, in a positive way, of course. I think it'll affect it has already. It affects what happens in the world.
This is going to be my last question for you. As an artist committed to social change, how do you see the role of hip hop evolving in today's cultural and political landscape? And what do you hope to contribute to that evolution through your music?
Hip-hop has always been a method or a platform to use to speak about like social justice issues and speak about things that need to be changed in society. I mean, that's where it came from, from young Black children in the Bronx who were unheard and, being victimized and oppressed, and them speaking up about that experience and being the first of their kind to do so in that way. And I think that even with, the things that we have a bit of contention with, some of the subject matter or whatever, there's always been this underlying voice of artists who are speaking about the real issues. Like he referenced, the rapper Today, you can recall, or you can see the similarities with, the griots or of West Africa being oral historians or like speaking about the events of the times. Like I think that it's still a platform utilized in that way. And I think for me, my role as an artist and my intention for my art is to be vocal about the things and issues that are not given the light of day usually. I think that Black music in America, from, the blues to jazz to, even soul, Marvin Gaye, what's going on in The Last Poets and all of that. We've always spoken to the times. We've always used music as a way to wake up and shake up things. And hip hop is no different, especially as a music genre of young people. You know, as long as people like myself and Soul Messiah are an example, we can show how powerful this is. I mean, we see the influence, the global influence of this culture, and we see, you know, people from Cuba to Palestine to all of these different countries that are using hip hop to speak up about injustices in the world, and it's always going to be that. So I just do my part to speak up about the things that are important to me, and be an example for those following.
And for you, Sol Messiah, what advice would you give to aspiring producers who are looking to make their mark in the music industry?
It's evolved over time. It used to be a time where you gather your music and you would send it to record labels and other artists and try to get them to record on your music. For me, what's helped me is to stop sending to people and build your own base. Work with artists that you can work with. That'll help the artist become an independent entity, and you, in partnership with that artist, can become an independent entity. So like, it's best to just build your own instead of trying to run around in a sea of everybody who tries to be a producer and a rapper. Build your own thing, you know, and independence is wonderful when you don't have to answer to nobody and you can do your own thing, you know what I mean? So that's what I do. I would advise young and up and coming producers to build your skill first, learn it. A lot of times people jump out here, they have computers now. Computers, you could cheat, you know, you don't have to be creative. Right. Also, I was raised playing instruments too, though. So I have more of a musical sensibility. And it's good to I think all children should learn an instrument. If it's drums, guitar, keyboards, you're singing, do something so that when you transfer that over into being a producer, you're not tone deaf. You can hear.
Which is very important.
Yeah. So, and take that, build your own sound, something that's particularly, that's you. It's you as an individual. When I hear it, I know that's Soul Messiah's sound. And then work with an artist or a couple of artists and build something with them. They will come looking for you. You don't have to look for other people. And consistency. Never stop. You gotta, a lot of times we'll do it and be like, oh, it didn't get popular. So do it again. Keep going, keep throwing, never stop. Like I said, she's 13 albums deep and she's just getting started. You know, we do it till the glass is empty. You know what I mean? We're here to give to the earth, and that's what you want to do, is share.
I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to come and talk to me. It really is very nice of you in this very short time that you have.
Indeed.
Oh no, this is everything that I imagined this trip to be able to connect with fellow creatives and intellects and artists. Like, that's the beautiful part about not only traveling, but, you know, making art, is that we can travel to different countries and that language is universal.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is a blessing. And I thank you. Have a lovely time. Show is going to be on Saturday. It's actually an afternoon event. So it's not just an evening event. So you can take family in the afternoon, enjoy, take kids back home, and then parents can enjoy the lovely evening. It's at the warehouse in Jack Ross. So please don't miss it. We will actually post the address on the bottom. And I thank you again. This is your Pan-African show called Afreeqa with your host, Sa-Roc and Sol Messiah. Thank you.